He is known for his photography and painting. We'd like to thank Mr. Sachin for taking out some time from his schedule on a Sunday evening and share his experience and expertise with us. So over to you, sir. And if anybody has any questions, then please put it on the chat box. Thank you. Over to you, Sachin, sir.
Thank you, Bandita. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rupam and Leon. And I really appreciate this initiative that all of us who are interested in wildlife should come on a single stage and we should share our knowledge. And that's how we can share our ideas, share our experiences. And I really thank you, all of you, for coming and joining this event. And I will start with my presentation. Can you see the first slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much for inviting me in this program. And let us know something about BNHS. What is BNHS? BNHS is a Bombay Natural History Society, and I hope most of people who are interested in wildlife must be knowing about BNHS. It's a NGO. It's a world's second oldest NGO, which is still working, and our NGO is working on wildlife. And our NGO is working on wildlife. It was established in 1883. So in the British era, it was established. So quite a old NGO, and we mainly work on birds. But other than birds, we have expertise, and the first books on mammals, reptiles, birds, shells in India were published by our society. So we have various publications, we have periodicals, journals, the Journal of Bombay Natural History Society, then Hornbill is a popular science magazine. Then we have all these specialist books on mammals, birds, migration, all these things. And talking particularly about myself, I'm interested in all different taxa of wildlife. I like to study the insects. I like to watch birds. And since I joined BNHS, I have been working in vultures only. But side by side, my interest is in other birds also. So we have ring, um, and put a PTT, that is a small transmitter. So once we put a transmitter on a Pallas fish eagle, and here in the other photograph you can see a Himalayan night heron that was also ringed. Then studying all these kind of birds, animals, insects is my interest. Today particularly, we'll be talking about vulture conservation. Before that, we will see how many species are there in India. So we'll talk about how to identify the birds, and then birds means particularly vultures, and then we will come to the point that why we should save the vultures. What is the problem? What is the motto? So I hope everybody recognize this picture. This was a famous picture painted by Raja Ravi Verma, and its title is Sita Haran. In Ramayana, the epic poem, it is known by almost everybody, every Indian know about it. And in that story also, we had one character, Jatayu. and this Jatayu was a vulture. So right from our civilization, earlier civilization, we were talking about wildlife. We have different characters, and these characters were from the wildlife. So take the example of monkeys, langurs, then a lot many characters are there, lot many gods are there who have particularly vehicle, uh, as a particular animal, as a particular their vehicle, or they had a form of some animal. So we know, the Indians know about the vultures. Our mythology talk a lot about vulture. But what is today's scenario? Today's scenario is that India has 9 species of vultures, which is a very big number. Otherwise, there are 23 species all over the world. And if you will consider the landmass, we are not very big country, considering the whole universe. I mean, the whole earth. But if we'll consider, there are 23 species. Out of that, 9 species are found in India, which is a very big number. That's why we are a very species-rich country. We are a very biodiverse country. And which species are there? These are the 9 species. I hope everybody can see it, isn't it? So, first 5 in the green are all gyps vultures. And below that, there are 4 species which are representing one genera each. But what is the more important is the name written on their right side. Okay. On the left side, all are the common names, common English name. Okay. On the right side, those are the scientific names. That is Gyps bengalensis, Gyps indicus, Gyps tenvirostis, Gyps fulvus, Gyps himalayensis, all this. And here you can see the color is dominated by red. And why I have given it a red color? Because all the red color depicted species are critically endangered species. What is meant by critically endangered? That means if we don't try to help these birds, try to save these birds, then they will go extinct. So all these 3 species from genus Gyps, like our whiteback, long-billed and slender-billed vulture and king vulture, they are going to extinct if we won't take a quick action. Other than that, there are other species like Himalayan Gryphon, Egyptian vulture, cinereous vulture, and bearded vulture. All these are also threatened, slightly lesser than those 4, but these are also not in very good condition. Only a species with good population count is Griffin vulture, that is Gyps fulvus. But out of the 9, 8 are some or the other way are endangered. Either those are critically endangered, or that's how the scenario is there. So that's why we must look at these birds, because these are very big birds. These are human friendly birds because they are doing a lot things for the human being. They are staying in our ecosystem and they are serving as a scavengers. So they are helping a lot for the mankind. That's why we must study these birds, look after these birds, and we must understand their biology. So let us start one by one. In Assam, the commonest bird you will come across is these birds. So although don't answer me right now, but you also can think in your mind that what could be this species. Just give it a try. And let me explain that this is a Himalayan Gryphon. The new name is Himalayan Vulture. Okay. Why it is so? Because its nesting ground is high Himalayas. And why we can see it in Assam? Because once the young one come out of the nest, it don't want to stay there because there is a chilly winter. And to avoid the chilly winter, these birds, all the immature birds, that means the juveniles and sub-adult birds, leave their nest or territory and come to the Indian plains. And they can be seen in the winter in all over the northern plains of India, right? In Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, or Assam, up to Arunachal, you can see these birds. And nowadays, these birds are traveling longer distance also. So these birds can be seen in even in Andhra, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu also. But there they are in very small number. But take the example of Assam and you can see lot many birds, lot many Himalayan Gryphon in the winter season. Why nowadays you can see them in more number? Because the other birds, the other resident species which used to be there are reduced in number. So you can see Himalayan Gryphon very easily, very quickly, and these are attracting our attention. That's why nowadays you can very easily see the Himalayan Gryphon, and those are especially in the winter. So what we see generally is this one, the bird on the right side. These are the juvenile birds. That means first year bird or sometimes second year bird. This year, interestingly, I could see this bird. This is reaching adulthood. And that's why it has more white. So when it will be completely mature, it will be a very beautiful bird, a coffee color bird with lot of white coloration. But what bird come to our area is mainly very young birds, and that's why they look like this. So this is a very common vulture. You must have seen it. Wherever there is a carcass, you can see these birds, and these are in the front side. You can see these are the Himalayan griffons. And many a time you confuse between the species. You can see in the background there are two birds. These are the juvenile of whiteback vulture. So vultures are quite confusing also. Not only vulture, but even the raptors are quite confusing. And why so? Because almost all vultures have their young ones draped in brown color. So the young ones of almost all of the vulture species in India look brownish. And that's why it is very difficult to identify them as a which species it is. So for that, there are some pointers, especially if the Himalayan Gryphon and Eurasian Gryphon, if we'll come across, those will be very tall compared to the resident species. And they will be having quite a good white neck and bluish around their eyes. And the best thing to identify them is their legs. Their legs are pinkish in color. If it is in a good health, then the leg of Himalayan Gryphon would look pinkish in color. So that separates it from the other species. In the lower frame, you can see another bird, which is almost looking like a dusty, dirty color. And this is a picture from a Carcass dump in Rajasthan. It is a Jorbir Carcass dump. It is a dump where a lot of carcasses are thrown. And the commonest bird in winter there is a Eurasian Gryphon, or nowadays it is called as a Griffin Vulture. Okay, it is a Gyps fulvus. And as its scientific name fulvus indicate, fulvus means yellowish brown. So you can compare these two colors. This color look very dark chocolate brown, whereas this Eurasian Gryphon look more reddish color. And that's why its name is Gyps fulvus. Gyps fulvus or Eurasian Gryphon is a very rare visitor to our part, Northeast India. So sometimes you can see them in the big flock of a Himalayan Gryphon. So here in the center, you can see only one Eurasian Gryphon. And so these observations are very interesting. And if we'll keep watching the birds keenly, then only we can keep all these records. So last year we got one Eurasian Gryphon in neighboring state, West Bengal, and we put a marking on it. We put a wing tag and we put a ring also, and we released and it went back. So identifying a Eurasian Gryphon from Himalayan Gryphon is the main thing is the color, okay, and it has a very distinct black color sear, that is nose. The birds have black their nose and it is called as a sear. So this sear is a very dark in color, so that separates it from the Himalayan Gryphon. Otherwise the confusion continues. So this is the best way to identify it, and even the color is a very good indication. Here you can see very easily the Himalayan Gryphon are looking chocolate brown, dark brown, and the Eurasian Gryphon is looking lighter and yellowish brown. So these are the two species, two griffons which winter in Assam. The third species I would like to talk about it is a very charismatic species, and though it is not found exactly in Assam, because this bird is also like to stay in high altitude in higher Himalayas, and very you can see these birds very easily in Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir, and these are the bearded vulture. Its older name is Lammergier. That means a lamb lifter, but it was a misnomer. So better to call it as a bearded vulture because it has a tuft of feathers at its chin. So it looked like a black color beard. So bearded vulture is also very beautiful, very large bird. It is a solitary bird. That means it live in a pair. You can see only one or two of them together. They are not in a very big group, but they are trailing behind the larger group of Himalayan Gryphon or whiteback vultures, whatever may be there. And a very peculiar character of this bird is that it can feed on the bones. Why it is so? Because these birds are evolved in that way. When these birds are living in high altitude, high Himalaya, there are scarcity of food. So rarely some big mammal dies there. So whenever there is a dead animal, then there is a lot of competition for food. The Himalayan Gryphons would come there, they will feed on the softer tissues. The other species will come, they will also feed, whiteback also there. And after that, the larger bones remains. These birds can lift these large bones like femur or leg or the other bones. They can carry the bone to a certain height, and from there it drop it on a particular rock. And when the bone fall on that rock, it shatters. Then these birds slowly again descend down, take all the small pieces of bones, and they feed it. So they can utilize the bone marrow as well as the calcium. So very interesting birds that in nature nothing is wasted. If there is a bearded vulture, it will clean the bones also. So other vultures will eat on the softer tissue, viscera, muscles, skin, and lastly even the bones. So it is a very important and interesting bird, although it is not found in Assam. In Assam, there is one more rare winter visitor, and it is a cinereous vulture. Its scientific name is Aegypus monachus. Monachus came from its again solitary habitat because these birds are not flying in a very big flock. These are the migratory birds, and they look like a monk, and that's why its scientific name is Monachus. It is a completely purely dark brown or black bird, and while flying you cannot see any other marking, and it has a something hood-like thing around its face. So its seed is pinkish and a pinkish bluish marking around its eyes, and that's all. Otherwise, the birds is uniformly dark colored and very beautiful, very king-like bird, you can call it. And this is a very interesting bird, Raja Hugun or king vulture, also called as a red-headed vulture. There is nothing more required to talk about this bird because the name is sufficient to describe its characters. It has a red head, and these are the birds where you can separate the male and female. Otherwise, in other gyps vultures, you cannot identify them as whether it is a male or female. But in king vulture, you can identify a male and a female based on their eye color. So, a bird with deep reddish black color will be female, and the male have bright yellow color iris. So you can identify them. In Assam, they are resident bird, and they nest here. They are found throughout the year here, but they are solitary bird. That means they could be found in a pair or single, not in a big flock. Here is a big flock of a small bird which is not found in Assam, and there are two races in India. So one of them travel a long distance from northern Africa, and its name is Egyptian vulture. So the race Percnopterus travel a really long distance and come to India, especially northern India, and feed there in the winter time and again go back. Whereas the other race, Gingianus, stays throughout the year in India, and that species can be found all the time in India. So how to differentiate between the two species? The Gingianus will have its big tip light in color, and the migratory species Percnopterus will be having the bill tip dark in color. So here you can see one bird with a lighter bill tip. So that is a Gingianus or a resident bird, and bird with darker tip. So that is a migratory winter visitor. So coming to the last three important species, all these three species are resident in India. I hope most of have seen this bird. This is a white back vulture, also called as white rump vulture. There is a similar species found in Africa also, and that is Gyps africanus, but that is the African whiteback vulture. Ours is a Oriental whiteback vulture. So, although we are indicating its back only white color, overall the bird is a slaty gray color bird. Very nice. This is the smallest bird in the Gyps vultures, means in the those fibers. And this is a very interesting bird. This is a slender bill vulture. It has a dark, slender beak and similarly dark, slender neck. And these vultures are nowadays found only in Assam, in India. And earlier they used to be found up to Haryana along the Himalayan foothills. But as the time passed, these vultures are now they have now the patchy distribution. So in the Tarai region, there are a few birds. There are a few birds in Nepal, in Assam, and a small population in Cambodia in that area. So this is also a very rare species nowadays. And here you can see on the top right corner a bird called as long-billed vulture. So long-billed vulture, earlier people used to think the slender-billed vulture and long-billed vulture both are a same species. Although Salim Ali separated this species and calling one as a subspecies. So Salim Ali called slender-billed vulture as a Himalayan long-billed. So people know that these are slightly different, but nobody that time studied it in very details. And so until say 2001, people kept on thinking that both are the same species. And that's why we have very less data on the slender bill vulture. But now we know Pamela Rasmussen had done a lot of work on this species to separate this species. So they use the molecular technology also. Also, some other morphological measurements were taken, and there are lot many differences. And one behavioral difference is that our slender bill vulture nest on a tree, and the long bill vulture mainly nest on the cliffs, on the rocks. So that is also there. So these are two different species, distinct species, and all these three species are now critically endangered. So overall, seeing that all of our vultures are now in danger, and that's why we must look what is happening in the scenario. So one may think that why we should save the vultures. And the main reason is that these are the most efficient scavengers. If there is a cattle carcass, then lot many different scavengers can come to the carcass and come and feed on it. But the most efficient is a vulture. And why it is so? Because these are the aerial route followers. So whenever there is a death, whenever there is a dead cattle carcass, the vulture can understand that at certain point there is a carcass and they can reach there. And we call it as a sky network. Okay. In sky, the vultures start soaring right from the sunrise, and they are flying. You can see a couple of birds, or say 5 birds, 10 birds at a time. But there are lot many birds flying in the whole sky in particular area, and they are watching the ground as well as they are looking at each other also. So once one group found there is a carcass, they start descending down. And after watching that some birds are descending at particular point, the other birds in the sky follow them. And they also start going in that direction. And there is a chain reaction. So there are lot many birds soaring, flying in the sky. We cannot see them, but they are watching each other and they follow each other and they descend at the location of a carcass. And that's why vultures can effectively come down and start feeding on the carcass. So once they start feeding on the carcass, they first devour, consume the soft tissues. And whatever may be the cause, whatever may be the disease, the vultures are the birds. And generally, the diseases in cattle, in livestock are particular to the mammals. So they can very easily consume this disease. They are not carrying this disease because they are digesting that. They have a very high acidic pH in their stomach. And these vultures can digest all these bacteria and all this stuff, and rotten milk, rotten meat and all these things. And that's why they can control this spread of the disease. And if they will come very quickly, then if there is a problem of some fungus or bacteria or virus, then they don't give the bacteria enough time to sporulate. That means to form a very rigid, hard covering. And if it will be consumed quickly, then it will be completely digested. So that's how the vultures control the disease spread. And as they are feeding on the rotting carcasses, they can control the foul odor, that means air pollution. They can control the soil pollution because they are just finishing that meat from that location. And if the carcass remain there, then there will be some putrefying liquids percolating in the land. And ultimately where they will go? they will go to the water source. So if a vulture clear a cattle carcass, then that means it is controlling the water pollution also. And that's how vulture work. And that's how it balance the ecosystem. It balance the ecosystem. And if a vulture feed on a particular cattle carcass, that means it is going to survive for some time. And that means we are helping nature to maintain its food chain and ultimately biodiversity, biodiversity of the vultures. So vultures are evolved from raptors. Long process. When there was a earlier bird, it used to look like something like a eagle or a raptorial birds. And slowly, these vultures left the habit of hunting. So vultures nowadays, the nowadays species is a very peace-loving, you can say. It do not hunt, it do not kill, but it just come and keep on waiting and watching when the animal will die, and it will feed on that. And it has evolved in many aspects. That's why it has evolved in that way, so that it can go hungry for 15 days very easily without taking food. Any other raptors cannot do that. But vultures know that they are the playing the game of patience. So they have to be very patient, and they have to look for the cattle carcass, livestock carcass, or even wild animal carcass. And that's why they have to be very patient. And once they feed, they can eat up to 2 kg. So in one go, a vulture can feed on almost 1/5 of its body weight. And then again, it can go hungry for next week or two without troubling any other animals. And during all these processes, vultures come together on a carcass. Vulture come and feed together. So they are a group loving birds. Other raptors will fight to the death. They cannot tolerate the other birds there unless and until it is a partner. But otherwise, so many raptors cannot be on a single food item. But vultures can feed together, they can drink together, they can take bath, and vultures are very clean birds. So after each meal, they take a very good bath and keep them very clean. And after that, they do the sunning so that the bacteria and bad stuff are cleared by use of a sunlight. And that's how vultures live. Vultures are very evolved birds, and they can be just compared with the human society. As nowadays humans are behaving, humans are having our society in a similar way. Vultures have their society, their social cultural network, and they obey their cultural network, they obey their cultural rules. So nowadays we say that, oh, I saw a lot many birds. So many of you have seen birds, but anybody have seen so many vultures? Can you count? Can you see them on your screen? Can you count all of them in the foreground? And not only the foreground, there are vultures on the background also. They are on the building tops, on the water tanks, on the pole. Everywhere you will see the vultures. So this wonderful photograph was taken by Dr. Gautam Narayan. It was taken in 80s. And in 80s, while studying the uh, bird hit, bird hit with the flight, that time this photo was taken in Delhi. Delhi is still capital of human being, but that time it was a capital of vultures also. So in those days, there used to be around 4 crore vultures. It is a estimated figure that there used to be around 4 crore vultures in those days. And I will talk something about the history that in 80s, as I said, this is a based on a statistic. Uh, this number was derived that there, now the vultures have declined drastically, almost 99.9% they have been finished from India. So whatever number is remaining today, and with help of these numbers and the trends, we have found that there used to be 4 crore vultures. And for the first time, the vulture decline was noticed in a Bharatpur National, at Bharatpur in the Kevladev National Park. And that time we were doing routine study of the vultures, routine study of the all kind of birds. And that's why these bird networks and all these things are very important. That you must keep an eye on the all kind of birds routinely, regularly with a scientific methodology. So that time we were studying the raptors in Bharatpur, and Dr. Vibhu Prakash was studying there, and he found that the vulture number was declining, and slowly, where he used to see around 200 birds, slowly he started finding less and less numbers, and ultimately in the Kevladev National Park in Bharatpur, there were 0 gyps vultures. So he thought that something very wrong is going on. And to find out whether this is the case of only Bharatpur or is it a case throughout India, we carried out nationwide surveys. We surveyed all over India. We divided part into northern area, eastern area, northeast, southern area. So southern India had relatively less number of vultures because of cattle population. But this northern area like Gangetic plains and Brahmaputra floodplains, all these area are very rich alluvial soil, and because of that, there are lot of cattle, lot of livestock kept by farmers, and that's why there are a lot of death also. And it was a quite a rudimentary type of cattle keeping was there that time, and that time the vultures number really increased very high, and ultimately it reached to the peak that there were about 4 crore vultures in India. And as the number was declining in Bharatpur, we started vulture survey all over India, and surveys were repeated. And everywhere we found that the vultures were declining in number. Everywhere the scenario was same. People were thinking that, whenever I asked to people in plains, they used to say that, oh, our vultures might have gone to the hill areas. When I used to survey the northeast, they used to say, no, our vultures might have gone to the mainland India. So like that. But everywhere there were very few vultures, and the number was striking. So we started studying these vultures systematically, why they are declining in number. So we first studied the food availability. No food was there. Then we studied the habitat. No habitat was there. Even today, if you will see, if you will take a transact or you will take a study of Kaziranga, there are hundreds and thousands of tall trees where the vultures can nest, but there are no vultures in that number. And vulture is such a fantastic bird that if there is lack of tall trees, the vulture can nest on a house roof also. So vultures are very, very intelligent birds. They can utilize all kind of habitat. So habitat was not a problem. Food was not a problem. So in 2004, 2 American scientists working in Pakistan found that the vultures were dying due to gout. There was a visceral gout. And after further investigation, they found that diclofenac was the cause. Diclofenac is a painkiller given to the cattle. Even human being also use it, but it is given to the cattle. And when a cattle dies after treatment, when a cattle dies, this drug remain in their body. And if vulture feed on such animal, then this meat goes to the vulture stomach, and vulture cannot digest this diclofenac, and this diclofenac damage vulture's kidney permanently. And as the kidney is damaged, this uric acid, which is thrown as a urine outside, this uric acid remain in the viscera, remain in the body of the bird, and it form crystalline layer, as you can see here. And this crystalline layer, this is called as a visceral gout that kills the bird. That's why we must act very quickly. So government of India has banned diclofenac, but there are three more drugs: nimesulide, ibuprofen, and aceclofenac. These are also dangerous, and we must act on that also. Government of India quickly put the bird as a Schedule 1 species, and we had a big meeting calling all stakeholders from different part of India and different part of world, and we all come to a conclusion that we must start a breeding program, and that's why this breeding program started. And the main thing is that we should stop diclofenac, we should start meloxicam, which is a safe drug. It was tested with IVRI. So IVRI has put a stamp on that it, and even we tested it. Not only we tested it, but it was tested separately in South Africa also, on other gyps vultures also, and it was found a very safe drug, meloxicam. And recently there was another drug identified. It was named, it is named as a tolfenamic acid. So these two drugs are surely safe for vultures, and these can be used in the cattle. But these other four drugs should not be used: diclofenac, nimesulide, ibuprofen, and aceclofenac. Apart from that, as the vultures were dying, and we cannot remove these drugs in one day from the market, or even not even 1 month. We cannot remove so much of drug available in the market. That's why we must start a breeding program for vultures, and vultures are very slow breeding birds. So it is a very time consuming, slow process, and we must bring some birds to the captivity and keep them in the holding and start their breeding. So it was a kind of insurance against the extinction. And BNHS started vulture conservation breeding centers in Pinjore, Haryana. Second come up in West Bengal. So first center came up as a breeding center in 2004. Earlier that was a vulture care center. In 2001 we started it. We converted it to a breeding center. And Raja Bhat Khawa, West Bengal, come up in 2006. This Rani Center come up in 2007, and recently we have one center in Bhopal. And all these four centers are doing very well. We have all three species, and these three species are breeding successfully. These are the four locations, and all three species are kept here. I will just discuss briefly how the setup of these breeding centers. These breeding centers are set up scientifically, keeping all the requirement in mind for the vultures, and they have a very big aviary where the vultures can live together in a flock. Smaller aviaries there where you can keep smaller group or pairs. Then quarantine aviaries. Nowadays everybody know about the quarantine. So when a new bird come to our center, these are first kept in a quarantine, and other infrastructure also. So as these are the elephant prone area, we have a fencing around the center. Quarantine aviary is about 1 to 2 kilometers away from the main center, where the new birds are brought. New birds are brought means when we started our center, we brought new birds, and there are some birds we rescued also from different locations, There are some problematic cases like poisoning, or train accident, or some nest fall. So in that cases, we bring a bird from wild and we keep it in a quarantine. We watch it for 45 days. We take various samples. Then these birds are shifted to the holding aviary in the main center. Holding is a smaller aviary where the vulture learn to stay in that aviary, and ultimately it is transferred to the colony aviary. Colony itself indicate that there is a flock of vulture. And the salient features of colony is that there around 30 to 40 vultures can be kept together. They stay together, fly, they can fly inside. So their muscles are well developed. There is a provision of food, water, all the requirements are there. Vultures are kept as wild as possible. We do not enter those aviaries frequently. Very rarely we enter. Food is provided from outside. Water is provided from outside without coming in the contact of birds, because we do not want to tame these birds like a dog. Tomorrow, in future, we are going to release all these birds back to the wild, and that's why we must keep them as a wild vulture population, and that's what we are trying to do. And we have a small office room where we have a small laboratory. Samples can be stored. In the Rani centers, we are dealing with mainly two species, whiteback vulture and slenderbill vultures, and these are the resident species in Assam. In other centers, we have other species like long-billed vulture is also there. Long-billed vulture is found mainly in the central India, so it is kept in a Pinjore center and a Bhopal center. And maintenance is the main work. Although it is a very nice, glamorous project, our main thing is keeping the things clean, because vulture feed on the meat. And once in 15 days, we have to remove the big bone chunks or whatever remaining. And once in a month, we have a particular time schedule. And once in a year, we have to thoroughly check all their nesting ledges, perching ledges. We have to randomly look for some birds and take their measurements, take their blood samples. And you must be wondering that how we collected the birds for the breeding purpose. So the main chunk of the population came, I mean breeding stock came as the young birds. And why it is so? Because the young bird take the captivity very easily. If you will bring the adult, it will be very much stressed. So better to bring young birds. The other thing in the identification of the age, when these birds are young, you can identify it is a nestling, it is a 1 year bird, it is a sub-adult. But once the bird cross 5 years, all the adults, 5-year-old or 50-year-old, all birds look alike because they have similar plumage. So you cannot decide whether what bird you have brought, whether it is in a breeding condition or is it old, it is useful for the breeding purpose or not. So we should bring the young birds for the breeding purpose. And bringing the birds was quite a difficult task. So as I told, whiteback and slenderbill both are tree nesters. So we have to climb tall trees and lower down the young birds very carefully. Then we have to show it to the forest department. Finally, we have to bring it to the nursery aviary where the bird is kept in a flock, in a small group. If we'll keep one bird singly, then it will start thinking that it is a young one of a human being. So that is called as imprinting. We do not want any kind of imprinting. And when we are keeping the birds together, then they understand, okay, I am looking like a vulture only, so I am a vulture. So that's why we are keeping them together. And they have a special diet. The young birds have a special diet, and slowly this diet is provided to them, and the gradation is changed, and ultimately these birds are provided complete carcasses. So at the end of 4th month, the bird become independent and they can start flying. So you can see us right from a small cotton ball of hardly 500 grams, this bird changed to a 5 kg bird which can fly independently. So this is how the white back grows. Similarly, slender bill grows. Trapping was not used in Assam, but it is also a very tedious process if you want to catch an adult bird. There were a few birds from different uh, problematic situations were collected, right? Like just like I said, some of them were saved from accident, poisoning, and nest fall. When we transfer a bird, they are transferred in a compact box. You may think that we should provide a longer box or bigger box, but it is not, because there should be sufficient space for a bird to stay there calm and quiet. If it is a more spacious box, then the bird will harm itself. That we do not want, and that's why it is a exact size of the box where the bird can stay calm, and sufficient space is there. So sometimes even we transferred these boxes by flight also, and that's how we carry these birds from the field to the breeding centers. Once arriving to the our center, these birds are quarantined. After quarantine, these birds are provided a permanent number and a microchip. Samples are collected, and then they are finally transferred to the colony area. In colony, they stay in a flock, and there they are not disturbed. So, but we must know about their whereabouts. So we have CCTV cameras, and these cameras are called as speed dome cameras. So they can move in 360 degrees, and everywhere they can move, and you can follow these birds what they are doing. So winter is a breeding season for vultures, and we have both species breeding in winter, and we provide nest material for these birds, and the birds select their own material, and they prepare their own nest so that their instinct remain constant. Because tomorrow or in a near future, we are going to release these birds back to the wild. The bird lay egg, the vultures pair for life. So it is a, they are just what I was saying, like a human society, they are very evolved bird. They pair for life, and they do not break their pair, and male female both look almost alike, and except egg laying, all the duties are done by both parents. So both parents feed the young one, both parents prepare the nest, both parents ensure that the bird is the nestling is growing in a proper way, and they maintain their temperature by brooding. That means they keep the young one below their feathers, below their wings. So all these things can be done by both parents. So just like a very evolved society, they have also a very evolved society. The young one become independent at the end of a fourth or fifth month, and then the young bird can fly. And all our centers are doing fine. And as we are breeding the birds, we must think we should release these birds back to the wild. And before releasing, we did a small program that we did an experiment rather than program. We put a PTT tag on some birds, white-back vultures, and you can see these birds. Most of them remain nearby where they were released, but some of them traveled very long. So right from Nepal, some birds come to Kokrajhar, or some goes to the Ranchi or Chhattisgarh or all these areas. So we can deduce from that that the vulture can travel 100 kilometer in one day very easily, because they are using the air current. And that's how we have suggested that there should be vulture safe zones where the vultures can be released. And in India, we are working at 9 sites where we are trying to start a safe zone. And in Assam also, we are working in this area. And for that purpose, we carry out awareness meetings, school programs. We study the wild vulture population, what are the current problems going on. We keep on surveying the pharmacies, what kind of drugs are available. And fortunately, in Assam, the meloxicam is found around 70%. So we must work on that there should not be availability of the diclofenac, and the other dangerous drug also should be banned by the government. And we are studying the vulture nesting colonies. We are taking help of all wonderful people of Assam, and here is my small attempt to grow some tall trees in the use cartons, use polythene bags, and this one villager helped me preparing a gamosa, and that's how people are working on the conservation. And in a nutshell, we should stop using the dangerous NSIDs. We should do the best veterinary practices, and we should try to save our vultures wherever we can see them. And especially for this group, I can say that we should keep recording wherever you see the vultures. It is very important to note down what it was doing, what was the species, what particular things I saw, all these things. So that's all from my side, and I hope I have taken a lot of time. Um, Over to Leon.
Thank you, sir. So you just ended 2 minutes before, sir. So you have not taken a lot of time. So I request Bandita to carry forward now. Bandita, up to you. Hello,
Thank you,
Bandita,
sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir, for your talk. You have explained every word very beautifully, and we are able to get whatever you are saying. And I believe that your talk will intrigue us to know more about the vultures. So we are seeing some questions here. So I would
Yeah.
like to read out the questions. So the first question was from KP Akilan. He asked, I wanted to know how you captured the vultures to take them.
Right. So as I said, this the one I showed, Eurasian Gryphon, that was a rescued bird. So for that we need not trap. But while showing how I collected the bird for the breeding purpose, that time I have showed that young birds were collected from their nest, and those birds like subadult and adults, which were flying birds, those were collected on the carcass. They were attracted to the carcasses, and there was a net or trap set over the food, and that trap was operated, and the vultures were captured with them. Okay.
We have the next question.
Yeah.
Yes. So the next question is from Priyadarshan. He asked, Sir, in 80s, diclofenac was widely used. How come did it happen that we had so many vultures back then and not now?
No, that was the time when diclofenac was just introduced. So in late 80s, diclofenac was introduced to India. That time it was not widely used. As it was kept on use by people and it spread all over India, then it kept on taking the toll. It keep on killing the vultures. Otherwise, even in 90s, 92, whatever, whenever we surveyed birds, there were good number of vultures. But the real problem was started from the 96. So you can find our paper, Dr. Prakash paper in 96. For the first time, there was a drastic low number of vultures was recorded. Not in 80s. The diclofenac was introduced to India later on, not in 80s. Yes.
So next question is from Manjira. She asked, where was the picture, the one with thousands of vultures taken in 1980? And what
Delhi.
led to...
It was taken in Delhi. I told that it was taken in Delhi, and it was a carcass dung, and it was taken by Dr. Gautam Narayan, who is working on pygmy hog. So he was in BNHS that time, working on the bird hit study. So that time it was taken.
Okay. Then next question is from Karishma. She asked, the migrant species from Africa and the one in India was shown in the picture are the same.
They are separate. That's why I have shown it there. Particularly it is about the Egyptian vulture. Egyptian vulture has two races. So one is coming from Africa, feeding here and again going back. It has the black tip of the beak, and the other one which is staying in India is also Egyptian vulture, but it is a separate race, and that's why it is named as a Neophron Percnopterus gingianus. So this gingianus has a lighter bill tip, yellowish bill tip. So you can identify if you will look them very closely. And there is one assignment for all those people who are interested in Egyptian vultures and would like to know. Go to the Guwahati Zoo and look at the Egyptian vultures. There are two birds, Egyptian vultures there. So try to look at the bill tip, which color it is. Okay.
So next question is from Debanjan. How is the scavenging of greater adjutants different from that of vultures?
Scavenging.
Yes, sir. He asked that how the scavenging of greater adjutant stock is different from the vultures.
See, all these birds have very small differences in their feeding. So greater adjutant can feed on even on the fish, on the snake, on the or the fish remain that is thrown by human beings. So all this material the vultures won't even pay attention, but the greater adjutant will swallow it completely and it will take it. But vultures are very specific, and all these 9 species have their niche separation. Niche means their food or feeding habit slightly differs. So if you will talk about the whiteback vulture, it will like to feed very soft organs, viscera. If it is a cinereous vulture, it will feed on the tougher portion or skin. If it is a Himalayan Gryphon, it will go mainly for the muscles. Eurasian Gryphon will go for muscles. In Egyptian vulture, it will take on the tendons, whatever remaining very small pieces, or even it is a coprophagous also. It can feed on the fecal matter also, and it will utilize all these materials. And as I have told you, the bearded vulture can feed on the bones. So for a layman, all the vultures are feeding on the cattle carcass. But for vultures, it is very specific portion they are eating. And similarly, the adjutant are feeding the soft area, soft organs, and they are gulping whole remains or whole viscera. So that sort of their feeding is there. But if you will compare them with the cinereous vulture, no, they are not comparable. Cinereous want a tough meat or a skin portion. The neophron want tendon pieces, or the king vulture will start from the picking up with the eyeballs or a very soft organ, but it has a very sharp but thin beak. So their body, beak defines what they are going to do. So either they are taking very soft material, hard material, or what kind of thing. Okay.
Okay. Sir, Karishma has a follow-up question to her question before. Both the species, the Egyptian and the Indian, they do not mate, right? Although we're seen in the same flock.
No, they do not mate because the Egyptian ones go back to the, Egyptian race. The Percnopterus goes to back to their native area, and there they prepare their nest and they mate there.
Okay, sir. So next question is, do vultures use their sense of smell to find the carcass or only visual sensation works during food search? Does the lifespan of vultures vary from species to species?
Yes, of course, the lifespan varies from the species to species, and this is a biological thing that there was one slide, but that I avoid to talk much about because short of time. It is called as a there are different strategies K and R. So some animals like elephant, they are very huge. Vultures are huge, and that will give only one offspring. and then there will be a gap of 1 year, 2 year, and after that again they will give one offspring. So it is a kind of a elephant kind of thing. So all our vultures are in that group, that extreme group, that they will give rise to only one egg per year when they are mature. In case of vultures, a couple of species are there which can lay 2 eggs, and they slightly vary in their lifespan, but otherwise they can live around 60 to 70 years certainly. Um, what was the other question there?
Yes, sir. Do vultures use their sense of smell
Yes,
to
that is
find
a
the
very
carcass?
classic question, and I hope you must be aware that New World vultures and Old World animals, isn't it? New World means America, North and South. All the animals in this area are called as New World animals, and all the animals from Asia, Europe, Africa are called as the Old World animals. So accordingly, the birds are also separated, the vultures are also separated. So in case of New World vultures, they use their sense of smell more, and our vultures, Old World vultures, use it less, but our vulture use um, uh, their sight more for finding out the carcasses. Why it is so? Because in case of for example, the birds, the vultures living in a very dense forest like Amazon forest, it is very difficult to look for the dead animal. So there they can use the cue by their olfaction also. So in those species, the sense of smell is very well developed. Our vultures don't have it developed that much, but sight is very much developed for searching the food item. Okay. The
The
scientists
next
were fighting on this issue for long time, and they keep on showing one proof after another proof, again after another proof, and all the time one scientist was using the specimen or the species from the old world vulture, and the other one was using the species from the new world vulture. So they kept on contradicting each other, and finally people understood that it depends on which kind of habitat these birds are living. So our most of the old world vultures are living in a very open area. So our vultures don't use smell as a cue for finding out food.
Okay, sir. So next question is, before releasing them back to the forest, is there any risk for them without their adapted environment?
Yes, certainly, because although we are providing them completely wilderness in the captivity, still when we will be releasing them back to the wild, that time they have to adapt, and there are a lot of things that they should not do. For example, going to the electric poles, or they should not be going close to the human infrastructures. Uh, Based on some earlier examples in America, where they have released such birds, these birds they were so tame that they used to go close to the restaurants, and they used to demand the food because they were fed by the human beings. So there are risks. In India, if such thing happen, people will simply kill the birds, thinking, "Oh my God, what is coming to my home?" Just get first, they will just try to shoo it off, and the vultures won't understand. So releasing is a very risky business, and that's why we have a special technique called as a slow release. In this slow release, we will preparing another house, another aviary for these birds, which is called as release aviary, where we will be keeping these birds, and we will be attracting the wild population around. And these birds will be looking at each other. Slowly, they will start interacting each other. We will be providing food for both these birds together. They will mix, and then they will follow the wild flock. So slowly they will mix to their wild cousins, and slowly they will go and disperse. It is not one night or 15 days process. It will be a very long process. That's why we will be putting a ring with a particular number, a wing tag on their wing and a PTT, like a small transmitter on their back, so that we can find out where these birds are going, what are they doing, are they getting food or not, are they being uh, I mean, they do have some problems. So all these things can be understood. Yeah.
Sir. So next question is from Sarad. He asked, are vultures uh, are restaurants required in India? What is your take on it? Any community conservation initiative taken for the conservation of vultures in India?
See, talking about restaurant, it is a very nice idea, but those who are running the restaurant should take the responsibility that there should not be any cattle carcass around their feeding ground. Okay, because what will be happening when the vultures can travel 100 kilometers very easily. Okay, you are inviting vultures from all over your area, say 100-kilometer radius circle. You are inviting all of them together and you are starting a restaurant. And on one fine day, your neighbor who will say that, okay, I don't know whether my cow is treated with nimesulide or it was treated with diclofenac, he will simply dump his cattle carcass outside. And whatever birds you have invited to your area, ranch, or whatever you called it, restaurant, they will go to the next door, they will feed there, and they will get poison. So who will be responsible for that? Of course, you are, because you are running the restaurant, isn't it? So in that case, first thing is that you should make the whole area 100, ideally 100-kilometer radius circle. You should make free from diclofenac. All the farmers, all the veterinary practitioners, all the people should agree and say that we are not using dangerous NSIDs in our cattle. And whenever we are getting our cattle dead, we are just throwing it for the vultures. Once you achieve that, a complete support from all sections of society, then and then only you can run such a restaurant or such thing. There are small programs run by different communities, and yes, there are some examples, but comparatively very few, and it is very difficult also. So there are a few examples. One in Assam, one in Maharashtra, uh, one in. There are many in uh, small locations in Gujarat. Then there are many locations where people are individually or as a small group, they are trying to run a restaurant or doing such vulture conservation programs, but not on larger scales. And it is not also possible also, because vultures can fly 100 kilometers very easily. In one day, they can travel for just for food. So if they want to mate or they want to form a new pair or they want to look for another location for their nesting, then certainly they are going to travel a really long distance. You cannot control them, you cannot even follow them, and unless and until you tag them, you cannot even identify them. So it is a very difficult task, and in such scenario, it is a advice. I mean, it will be my advice that you just try to look for your local area and try to make it a safe area for vultures. That will be more than sufficient. Okay.
Okay, sir. Next question is from Nikhil. He asks, sir, somehow if the tags got removed from the wings of the vulture, then how could you track them after that?
Yeah, then there is a ring also on their leg, and the text is generally not. I mean, stake it is a number printed with a very high performance ink. So hopefully that will remain. Even the number will go, the tag will be there, and orange color is for India, so we can understand from that. And the third option is that the PTT will always give you signal. So that will tell you which vulture is going where. And there is one more thing, that there is a small microchip in their chest. So if such vulture falls down or found sick, or if there is some accident, and you can recover that bird, then with a microchip reader, you can read its number, and that will remain lifelong without any problem. So there are at least 4 ways you can identify your vulture. And if any of them don't work, let it not work. Don't bother for that. If your vulture is surviving, we are much more happy if the vulture is surviving. There is no need of mm, counting the number or something like that. Okay.
Right, sir. And next question is there any project for saving vulture in Rajasthan?
There are a lot of project everywhere going on. We started from Rajasthan. Then I monitored vulture colonies there at least for 4 years. So lot many locations, Rajasthan also, there are a couple of good people working there. Then people are monitoring the vultures in the Keru Carcass dump, in this what I showed you the photograph. They are also there. Then there is a small vulture colony in Jodhpur also, Jaisalmer also. So things are going on.
Okay, sir. We have a last question. Are there any niche separation and food preferences seen among the individuals of the same species, those who feed together?
Not much. It is very difficult to. It is very difficult to watch that, and there is less niche separation between the individuals. Very less. And see, vultures are ultimately opportunistic feeders. So whatever you give, they will try to consume it, and they will try to save it. There is a very big pouch at their base of their neck. It is called as a crop. So they will try to grab whatever food you are giving them. So yes, in our captivity, we can watch these things, and we can mark that some vultures like some particular thing more or like that. But otherwise, it is very difficult to identify the birds and its requirements. So overall, niche is applied to the species, not individual.
Okay, sir. Next question is from Abraham. He asks, at what age are the captive breed vultures released back into the wild?
We are planning to release them at the age of second or third year. So that means in vultures we have 3 categories. One is juvenile, that is up to first year after it's hatching up to next year. So that is the 1 year. After that, second year, third year, fourth year, to almost in many individual fifth year. All these 4 years are sub-adult, and after fifth year they are properly adult. So then they are adults. So juvenile, sub-adult, and adult, and we are trying to release them in the phase of sub-adult. Why it is so? Because if it is a very juvenile, very young bird, then mostly these young birds are very naive. It is very difficult for them also to cope up with the vagaries of nature, and that's why if they are born in the wild in the nest itself, then things are okay. They are following their parents. But if we are releasing them from our aviaries to the wild, then it will be a difficult thing. So we are releasing them in the sub-adult phase. So second or third year age, we are releasing them.
Okay, sir. So next question is from Pallavi. The question is, do you get notified if the tagged vulture is injured or if it dies?
Notified means every day we get some data. Every day, at least it shows 3 points at the 3 timings in a day. And from that, we can deduce that, okay, in morning, this vulture was at this point. In the afternoon, it moved here. In the evening, it moved further. If 2 days or 3 days, if it won't move or its altitude won't change, that means it is stuck at one place. That means there is something wrong. And then we have to go and do the ground truthing. At that time, we have to look for the vultures. And if it is sick, vulture can stay without food for a week or two. So that is not a problem. But if it has something problem, some accident, injury, something, then it stays stuck at one point, and then we have to go rescue that bird and treat it if required.
Right, sir. Next question is from Keshav. The question is, what are the factors to consider to locate or in search of vulture nest, especially in southern India?
Southern India. It depends on what species you are trying to look for. If you are particularly interested in the Indian vulture, long-billed vulture, then it is going to nest on rock cliff. And if you suspect that there are the areas where the vultures are roosting and nesting, then you will see lot of marking of their bird shit. So white marking you will see, and from that you can find out that these vultures are there nesting on the rock cliff. If you are looking for the white-back vulture and king vulture or red-headed vulture, then you have to consider particular old tall trees or a plantation, whatever may be there, and then you have to look according. So generally they prefer the tallest tree in that particular area. So if for the whiteback and king vulture, you have to look tall trees, and generally it is not far away from the human population. But the thing is that when we travel on road, the human being, we think that we have come far away from the human population. But somehow, if you have some technique, like you can look for the areas with a geolocation, or you can access the high definition maps, then you can find that most of the time the vultures are close to the human habitation. In a tall tree, their colony is generally in the tall trees and a slightly secluded area, slightly. Okay.
Sir, I think one last question from Abraham. The question is, how expensive are the tagging equipment?
Very expensive. So there are some cheaper things also, just like what different things I suggested. I told you that putting a ring is a relatively cheaper thing, and you can see it with binocular. Putting a patagial tag is a cheaper thing. It is a few dollars you will require. Putting a microchip is a slightly costlier thing, but unless and until you will catch the birds and use the microchip reader, it is of no use. And using PTT is quite costly. It will cost around 5 lakh rupees per piece. And again, you have to purchase data also. And there is a long procedure to get this tag in India. So that is a very long process and very costly process.
Uh, okay, thank you so much, sir. I think that's the end of our question and answer session. And if anybody has any further questions, then you can email us. We will put our email here. Uh, and I would like to thank sir for taking this beautiful session and filling our lackadaisical Sunday from in a knowledgeable one. And we are looking forward to have more session with you, sir. And thank you once again. And I would like to thank all the participants to join us on Sundays, and also making our event a successful one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Just one more minute. I got many requests for the recording of this session. So the recording of this session will be available in BirdCount India webpage and also the YouTube page of BirdCount India as well as Assam Bird Monitoring Network. So we'll share the recorded session in a couple of days, and please keep following the BirdCount India web page and YouTube page, and also Assam Bird Monitoring Network YouTube link also. Thank you, sir. That was such a lovely talk. We really enjoyed.
Thank you all from your side, because all of you were there. So it gave us a nice inspiration that so many people are interested in this subject. And I hope that all of you spread your enthusiasm in your groups, and we'll keep on discussing such topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And also, sir, we have participants from all across the country. We're starting from Rajasthan till Kerala, from Madhya Pradesh also. We have participants from all over the country.
It is very interesting. In Madhya Pradesh, we have a center at Bhopal, so they can join Dr. Rohan Shringarpure, and they can work with us. In Rajasthan also, we are working. We have a small team, and sometimes we do some visiting work. And there are a lot many people I know in Rajasthan also doing wonderful work. And almost all over India nowadays, people are getting understanding about all these problems. And all these problems are just man-made. So in earlier days, there used to be a bird, canary bird, and people used to carry it in the coal mines, and that birds used to scream when there used to be some poisonous gas, and people used to understand that okay, this bird is screaming or this bird is dead, that means there is something problem. So nowadays this vulture is playing the same role for the human beings. You see these all kind these NSIDs, these are dangerous to mankind also, but our kidney is slightly different than the birds. That's why we are not much affected by these drugs. But this is a alarming bell for the mankind also, that we should use our drugs, our all kind of chemicals, all these, even the you see these detergents, and there are lot many things, shampoos. These are having very harmful chemicals nowadays. So this is an alarming situation, not only for vultures, not only for birds, not only for wildlife, but for the mankind also. These birds are alarming us that we should use all chemicals very carefully.
Sir, there is another sir, is any reference in Karnataka? Supriya is asking.
Any reference in Karnataka? Karnataka in Bangalore, we had one of our associate. So either she can, and even if she want to, uh, she would like to communicate with BNHS group, she can communicate with us also. My email ID is s.ranade@bnhs.org. So you can contact me also, and we can work. Any project in Maharashtra? So projects are everywhere. In Maharashtra, there is a very good friend of mine, Dr. Bhau Kadare is working, and in Konkan area, Bhau Kadare is working on the vultures, on white-bellied seagull, on turtles, lot many things, and these are our pangolins. So you can join Bhau Kadare. Then Dr. Kurhade is there. He was also working there. So individually, there are lot many people, and you can start from your point, and then you can join hands with other organizations. Or if you want some kind of a training or some kind of explanation of some how to collect the information, how to tabulate it, how to analyze it, and we can help in that thing also. And you can refer all our different research paper also. And if you have any problem, you can communicate with me. I will just type my email address here in the chat box, so all people can have it, and whatever your thought you can share with it. So s.ranade@bnhs.org is my email address. So if you want some help of literature or something like that, I can provide it. Or even you can
Yeah.
contact me on the Facebook also. I am there. Okay.
Okay. So thank you, sir. On the behalf of Assam Bird Monitoring Network, we would like to thank you all for attending also, and especially sir for giving us so much time. So Bandita, it's up to you. You can just close the session now.
Yes, thank
Bandita,
you
you,
once
yeah.
again.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. We're just closing the session.
So in case anyone has any more queries, we're sharing our email address in the chat box. You can also reach out to us at any time. Thank you very much.